Good afternoon. The sun's not shining today, makes a change. Easier for filming because I don't have to deal with those bright highlights, but still a lovely day. Not too warm, but I want to show you this today. It's a hawthorn, and I've got this, it looks a bit weird, I've got this log wedged in it, so I'll give you a closer look. Basically, this was a fairly standard, boring hawthorn, perhaps about 4 or 5 foot tall, something like that. I chopped it off here and it sprouted and grown, but I was looking at it last year and I was thinking it's pretty boring. All the branches are on one side, so my idea was to bend the trunk and grow a raft style with an arched trunk coming out of the pot with these trees as sort of trunks. So that was my initial idea. I've actually done something similar with the southern beech that's going really well. I'm going to do a future video on that when I remove the stones to reveal the trunk and the roots and everything. That's one of my most interesting projects, I think. But I'm looking at this tree now, and to be honest, the roots are kind of in the wrong place for a raft style. And I quite like how this has grown at the top. Obviously these shoots that are beginning to thicken up have all grown quite radially, and I think this could be a good broom style tree. So kind of bearing all these things in mind, the first thing I'm going to do is remove this chunk of wood. You could ask what I was doing with this, I don't know. I couldn't really get the bend down enough, I couldn't get enough angle on the bend, so I just ended up wedging this in. So what I'm going to do is push down on this just to take off some of the tension and pull that out. And that's not bad. It's maintained quite a lot of curve, which is good. I'm happy about that. I'm going to cut off this wire. I'm trying to work out what I was doing with this wire. It's a bit of a crazy mishmash. I don't know what was going on there. I can't really work out how to undo it. First thing, I suppose just cut it like that. Now, I'm going to just unravel some of this wire as I do, just to keep it in longer pieces so it can be reused. That was just attached round the base of the tree, round the root, and this is just kind of locked into the top. So as you can see, this is, I've done some kind of unorthodox basket weaving type technique. I'm sure you wouldn't see this in Japan. Oh, maybe you would, I don't know. I think they'll do whatever's necessary to get the job done, and this is what I had to do to get this bend in the tree last year, so I did it. And now it can all come off. There. So having thought about my options with this tree, I think the best option is to have 2 trees. One with a nice smooth curve at the base, and a broom style tree with a fairly short trunk. I think that'll work well. I've not really got any proper broom style trees, and it is something that I'd like in my collection, so let's do it with this one. So what I'm going to be doing is creating an air layer, probably around here actually, and wrapping it with moss and doing what I do. So that's what I'm going to start today. I've got a bud here which is going to be in the way, so I'll remove that how high should it be there, the trunk. I think I want the trunk to be, say, that high, which means the air layer has to be here, therefore this branch is in the way. And if I want the base of the tree there, which is about right, that's where I'll cut. So I've got a sharp knife and I'm going to cut right around the trunk. There. Now, the depth of the cut should be at least the diameter of the trunk. So this needs to come down to somewhere around here. There we go. And now I cut down through the bark and hopefully that bark should just peel away. It's not just the outer skin of bark that's got to go. We need the inner layers as well. So this yellow here, that's what I need to get down to. Whereas where it's green on this side, that's not enough. That's all got to come off, this green, because that's what the water and nutrients travels up through the tree. And the idea is we reduce the tree's ability to feed and water the top part of the tree, and in response to this, the tree puts roots out along this line to keep the top part alive. That's the whole idea of the air layer, and that's how the kind of the principle of an air layer works. You're kind of tricking the tree really into, well, you're not tricking it, because if it doesn't do something, the top section will die. It's quite hard to get off this, much harder than on a maple. But then all trees are different, you know, the different varieties and species have their own makeup. So that's great. That's come off nice and neatly. The top has to be the very clean cut, because that's where the roots will come from. And then I just scrape like that. To make sure I'm down to this centre wood. I'll do that all the way around. And this is actually the second tree that I've air layered. I attempted my first air layer around 30 years ago when I was a boy, and we had a hawthorn tree in the garden, and it had a lovely little section that looked like it could become a nice tree, and me and my dad had to go air layering it. We had no clue what we were doing. We didn't use moss, we used garden soil in a bag, and you'll not be surprised to hear it didn't work. But we had fun trying it, and I'm hoping for better things off this. So the next stage is to apply some hormone rooting powder to the upper section round here. That's the bit where the roots will come, And so I go all the way around. Just, there's got to be a better way of doing it than this, to be fair. And next time I do it, I'm going to look into using a brush or a more efficient method, because this just doesn't seem great. But I'm getting plenty on. That's the main thing. It's cheap, this hormone rooting powder, so I'm not bothered about kind of wasting it. I just want to get lots on, and I can't touch it with my hands. You're not supposed to. And so that's great. So I've got a piece of plastic here. Cavolo Nero cabbage. Very healthy and very tasty. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to use this to contain the moss that's going to go around there. So I've got a piece of wire, 1mm aluminium wire, and all I'm going to do is wrap this plastic around the base like that to create effectively like a parcel, or a package. And the wire just goes around that base there, and I'll just twist it round around the plastic, relatively tight, but not crazy. And there we go. So I've got some moss here that I've been soaking for 10 minutes. You want it wet, but you don't want it absolutely saturated. So all I'm doing here is just taking that soaked damp moss and just wrapping it around the trunk with the centre around that bark that I put the hormone rooting powder on. It's quite a simple process, this, really, and for those of you who saw the video where I did an air layer on a very thin going green maple, that was very fiddly. It was a tiny thin trunk and it was actually quite difficult. This is quite a solid, you know, thick, relatively thick trunk, and it's a lot easier using a little bit more moss. It's all nice and solid, and you just take your time, wrap this plastic around, try and do a neat job so there's no air pockets in there. You want everything held in and sort of firm, but you don't want to squeeze it so that there's no oxygen in there, because that oxygen in the moss is going to help the roots to grow. And once you've done that, you just wrap the wire around the bag, preferably in the same direction that the plastic was wrapped around the moss, as I'm doing here, and then you just work your way up the bag, holding everything together, and that's it. You know, it's not rocket science. Squeeze it around, you know, tighten the wire around the top, and the job's a good one. And hopefully, well, we'll see what happens. So I had to do a bit of voiceover work there because my microphone ran out of battery halfway through that last scene, but good practice for me to learn a new skill to do a voiceover and how to edit it and stuff. So what I'm going to do now is I've got a piece of bin liner, and what this is for, it's just to cover the bag in darkness to allow me to take a look inside and see if there's any roots growing without disturbing the white plastic. Well, it's not white, colourless plastic. So it's just again, it's very simple, this. It's just a wire, wrap around, and twist it round at the top. And that's it. So that's now got moisture sealed in, it's got light excluded, and how long that'll take to grow, I don't really know, if I'm honest. I'm hoping sometime this year it'll put roots out before winter. I'm hoping I can cut that off, but perhaps I don't think they're as easy as other plants to air layer hawthorn, so I think this will be quite a challenging one, but I'm always up for the challenge, and that's part of the fun of bonsai. So thanks for joining me today, and just another thing to look back on and see whether it works. To be honest, if it doesn't work, I can just cut it here and I've still got a nice, you know, curving, chunky tree to maybe do a windswept design with or something like that. So nothing lost, even if it doesn't work. So thanks for joining me. Have a great day. I'll see you soon.